We've had every month, it seems, a new situation where an unarmed black person is killed by a white police officer. Whenever you're listening to this video, it'll be another. I don't see any political will or any large-scale political effort to make any changes in that. The country is, the wealth of the country is owned and controlled by white men. The power of the country is controlled by white men, and there's some obvious solutions, but it's difficult to be optimistic about any of them changing. There are so many conflicts of interest running through here that I think are not being talked about, so I'm not running for political office, so I guess I can talk about them. The first is something that all evil persons have known for, goodness, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years, and that is that dead men don't bite, as Long John Silver said. Dead men tell no tales. If there is a situation where a police officer is in a untoward confrontation with a black man, then so long as the camera gets turned off, maybe one of the best resolutions to the situation at the end is to have the black man dead, because we are all too fearful to not believe the police officer in what he said. Oh, well, he came at me violently. Oh, there was a weapon involved. It's very frightening to think of being in a world where the people who are in control of enforcing the laws are the transgressors themselves. And therefore we believe the police officers. It's too frightening not to. And obviously the dead man, once again, is not going to give his side of the story. And a police officer would have to be very dense not to recognize that fact. The other conflict of interest, something I've seen recently, the Chauvin police officer and the George Floyd situation has made a lot of unrest for many, many months. But that's just what's going on right now. Whenever you're listening to this, it'll be another one. One of the problems I've seen with the other similar situations that have come up since, one is that if a local prosecutor has the job of pressing charges, criminal charges against the police officer, he's in a conflict of interest right off the bat. A local prosecutor is dependent on the police force for bringing convictions against criminal individuals. And if he loses their cooperation, then he will not be able to do his job very well at all. So that's the first conflict of interest. One way, well, that's one of the conflicts of interest. And that is one of the reasons that many people are saying that it needs to be a federal prosecutor, or at least a special prosecutor from outside the area to come in and do the prosecutions. One thing that is often brought up when a police officer kills another unarmed black man is that the prosecutor in charge of bringing charges against the police officer will bring manslaughter charges, and there's often an upset group of people saying, no, this is murder, no, this is murder, and we should bring murder charges. Well, that's one of the big problems of this situation. If you bring murder charges, that given a police officer's confrontation with a person, it's awfully difficult to prove premeditated murder, and that is one of the problems. If a prosecutor brings the wrong charges, sometimes it almost feels satisfying when a prosecutor brings murder charges against a police officer. Oh man, yeah, throw the book at him. Well, you don't throw the book at anybody until you convict them. You don't, in a sense, you're not throwing anything at a person until they're convicted and sentenced to some sort of penalty for what they've done. And if you bring murder charges that you cannot prove, then you have effectively said that there will be no penalty for that police officer. And it makes me very uncomfortable when I see charges being brought against a police officer that I really don't think can be proved in a court. Because we aren't talking about what we'd like to see happen. We're talking about what can be done in a courtroom. And therefore manslaughter is much more reasonable. And there have been many, and it seems a valid point. Many have been bringing up the point that one way that a prosecutor will make sure that a police officer gets off with no penalty is to bring the wrong charges against the police officer. That sounds real tough guy. Oh yeah, murder. But that can't be proven in court. There must be mens rea, there must be malice aforethought, there must be many things for some types of murder charges to be substantiated and convicted, and there just won't be the evidence for it. But manslaughter? Well, sure. Yeah, we can do that. And it's better to do what we can do than to not do what we can't do. To make things happen. There's a situation going on now with a police officer who killed an unarmed black man, and she said, oopsie doodle, I thought it was a taser. Boy, I'll tell you what, the tasers I've seen are not the same. They're not the same mechanism as a pistol. They don't have the same type of trigger. They aren't shaped like a pistol. They aren't the same. They aren't the same weight. As I say, the trigger mechanism is not the same. And but it sure seems like a nice way to get off the hook. Just say, whoopsies, I killed him, but it was just the merest of accidents when that happened. And I just feel terrible about it. A solution? Goodness, it seems like the most obvious solution, besides having body cams that cannot not be turned off. Sorry. That means the body camera is going to be on when you're doing your business. Oh, that's too bad. But the best solution, in my opinion, would be errors and liability policies for each police officer. The police officer wouldn't have to pay for it. They'd be paid for by the government body employing those police officers. But it would be an insurance policy like any other insurance policy that would pay off in the event that charges are substantiated against that police officer or complaints are validated. And it would be like any other car insurance policy or any other life insurance policy. If you have a lot of claims on it, the premiums go up. And then if you have more claims on it, the premiums go up again. There are policies for that individual. And every police officer would be required to have his errors and liability insurance. And when that insurance policy premium gets too high, then it's going to be very difficult for that police officer to just skip off to a new city and say, howdy do, I'm your police officer, hire me. Records can be hidden, but insurance policy premiums, boy, those insurance companies keep a tight grip on who the good risks are and who the bad risks are. And once a policy gets too expensive, once a person has a stroke, boy, it's very difficult for them to get life insurance. And it can be the same way with errors and liability insurance for police officers. And that would keep the bad apples from being rehired over and over again, because they would not be able to get coverage for their work as a police officer. In my opinion, that would be a very simple solution that wouldn't require a bunch of fussing and yelling, wouldn't require any, what do you call it, education classes. If a police officer doesn't want to take them, well, that's too bad. Like anything else, that would just be a mark on their insurance policy. You can get lower premiums if you go to this awareness class. No, I don't want to go to it. Well, that means the premiums for that municipality just went up for that police officer. And if the municipality thinks that's okay to pay a little more, well, works out just great. It's just private markets and supply and demand and all those things that we love to death in our country.